Pesticides are chemicals used to kill or control pests like insects, rodents, weeds, and plant diseases. They help protect crops and prevent disease outbreaks and keep buildings safe from damage. The main goal of the pesticides is to manage pests and plant growth. They're used to control weeds, insects, and disease-spreading pests like mosquitoes, ticks, and fleas. Pesticides also protect wooden structures from termites, preventing costly damage. Researchers have studied pesticides in many areas, including their effects on cancer, brain development, reproduction, and the environment. Concerns about pesticide use include their impact on human health, food safety, water pollution, and the decline of helpful insects like bees. Because of this, scientists continue to look for safer and more eco-friendly pest control methods.
So for pesticides and their unintended effects on individuals, pesticides commonly affect the endocrine system, and this can cause reproductive failure in individuals. And as seen on the graphic on the slide, these effects can lead to other effects within individuals, like in birds, endocrine disruption can lead to eggshell thinning, or in fish, neurotoxicity can then lead to altered behavior. And an example of a pesticide that can cause these effects are organophosphates, which are commonly used in agriculture, landscaping, manufacturing, and vet medicine to control pests on crops. But this pesticide can often impair metabolic functions such as thermoregulation and behavior in vertebrates. And these effects that are caused on individuals can then lead to unintended population effects as well.
This is the population level effects of pesticides. All populations are affected from mammals to fungi. Most people think of pesticides simply being unhealthy in our food, but what they don't realize is it is causing changes in reproduction and development in species across the board. We can also see a change in food sources and a decline in natural enemies and predators because of the level of neurotoxicity and endocrine disruption.
An ecosystem is defined as a community of different species in a population living in the same area and interacting with each other. Pesticide use on farmland potentially damages different ecosystems due to the removal of insects or prey. In the example of birds, a loss of insects and spiders, which are important sources of food for a wide range of species, causes birds to relocate or die off. Similar effects have been observed in small mammals as well.
So the effects of global change on pesticide consequences. These are increased exposure, physiological impacts, habitat alteration, species range shifts, and trophic cascade effects. Figure 3, which is shown there, starts off with increased exposure. So climate change factors like altered precipitation patterns and extreme weather events can lead to increased pesticide runoff into water bodies, which will expose aquatic organisms to higher levels of pesticide combination. The physiological impacts: warmer temperatures can affect an organism's metabolism, potentially making them more susceptible to pesticide toxicity. Habitat alteration: this changes in vegetation due to climate change, which can modify the distribution of both target and non-target species, leading to increased exposure to pesticides in new areas. Species range shifts: as species shift their geographic ranges in response to climate change, they might encounter new pesticide-treated areas, which would increase the exposure risk. And trophic cascade effects: pesticide exposure at one trophic level can disrupt the entire food web, with cascading effects on other species depending on their ecological interactions. And a specific example of how global change could increase unintended pesticide effects is the rising temperatures, which can lead to increased pesticide volatilization. This can cause wider pesticides to drift in exposure to non-target organisms like pollinators in nearby ecosystems, which can potentially impact their populations at a larger scale than under normal climatic conditions. So the solutions for microevolution and future research: can microevolution catch up? Microevolution can potentially catch up to some pesticide-induced effects on wildlife populations by developing resistance through genetic changes. So genetic diversity If a wildlife population has low genetic diversity, then their ability to adapt through microevolution to pesticide exposure may be limited. And indirect effects, pesticides can disrupt food webs or alter habitats, which may not be mitigated by microevolutionary adaptations. And what kind of research is needed to help us manage the effects of pesticides? So we can do this by monitoring genetic diversity, studying the direct and indirect selection pressures imposed by pesticide exposure on different wildlife species to understand the rate and direction of potential microevolutionary changes, and by modeling population dynamics. So by using population models to simulate the interplay between pesticide exposure, microevolutionary processes, and population trends to predict potential impacts and identify management strategies.